Welcome everyone to tonight's game. I'm your play-by-play caster here, username _Intel here, joined by Mr. Acronator, as we are here to watch over Osiris versus Red Sky. Acri, how are you doing tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm looking forward to this game. These teams both have pretty good records thus far. You have Red Sky, who's 2-1 thus far. Osiris 3-0. So Osiris, of course, looking to keep that undefeated streak. Red Sky hoping to not go even in the standings thus far.
Oh, I definitely can understand that Osiris, the Egyptian god, obviously living up to that title by keeping up with those wins. So I definitely think they need to continue playing strong, especially if they want to kind of keep that record. While Red Sky, I feel like they really need this, and they're probably coming in really prepared and really excited to do anything.
Yeah, definitely. And here you can see what I believe to be their starting rosters coming into this. In terms of compositions, they all seem to be relatively comfortable with the stereotypical May McCree brawl, at least if their team sheets are to be believed for their most played heroes. I guess that's not too shocking. I believe these teams are going to be somewhere around the plat diamond level, so
Yeah,
don't
it's what
expect
you
too much double bubble.
Yeah, honestly, it's just what you expect coming out of teams. Brawl is just one of those compositions. It's very simple. It's very fun to run. Uh, so you don't really have to stress it out because double bubble can be very complex. Even at the highest level, you can see people making very simple fundamentals mistakes with the composition.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you have literal Overwatch League teams struggling with double bubble, maybe a bunch of plats don't want to test that composition too much. It's so min-maxy. Whereas Brawl, at the very least, the skill floor is gonna be a lot higher, so they can get a lot of base minimum value out of whatever they play. And then on the other hand, you can get so much out of Brawl if you play it exceedingly well instead of, making mistakes yourself. It's really more about like forcing mistakes out of the opponent. It looks like we might be going to Busan for the first map. Yep, looks like that will be the case. So not quite as much diversity in like the compositions that can be run as opposed to something like Lijiang Tower, but there's still a little bit of flexibility in terms of what these teams could want to run. Something like the Brawl composition and Mecha Base is pretty standard, whereas you could actually see some more poke-oriented compositions in Downtown or Shrine, I believe.
Yeah, I do believe so. But this is Red Sky's preferred map, so obviously they must have been the ones that picked Busan. And I personally really love Busan. I feel like okay, it's mostly because I've seen a lot of doofus be running on Basan. You're not held down by just Brawl. There are a lot of variations within it that people end up running as we're going into the match. And I feel like we could be seeing a lot of Mei, a lot of Doomfist, a lot of ability to just be able to punch in and just destroy people.
Yeah, definitely, especially because we're going into mech base, it's very possible that if these teams want to get a little bit funky with it, they could run the Doomfist. Otherwise, I wouldn't be too shocked just to see that stereotypical Mei McCree. Mei's so powerful on this point. We have seen some variations in the past of like maybe a Symmetra along with the Mei, something along those lines. It really depends on what these teams' comfort zones are.
Yeah, the Mei Wall is by far one of the most powerful abilities, as both teams wants to pick the Hell character itself, Mei, even the gods of Osiris. But they are running very mirrored, very much Brawl, except for possibly a Sigma difference. What? I don't really know what much of a difference that makes, besides from Poke.
Yeah, so realistically, the Sigma is more offensive as opposed to the Diva being a lot more defensive oriented. So Red Sky really want to win these fights quickly because Osiris is going to have a little bit more sustain because of that defense matrix. They're not going to be tanking as much damage.
Yeah, they're both going to meet up at top of the high ground while the Brawl goes out. That Sigma shield already being forced out. The Brawl going out, stun, managing to hit out Stroll. He's able to back out with the Immortality, managing to save out Lumpus, but he still has to back up barely low, and they managed to pick out both Reinhardts. Over that Sigma's going to allow them just to back up a bit more because the E is now gone. They're going to want to be holding the choke while they wait for their Reinhardt to continue coming back into this fight. They're just going to retreat and give it space.
Yeah, and that's not too shocking. Red Sky didn't really find any early picks. Like I said, they're going to want to take these hyper-aggressive pokes and really look for early picks like that, and that's going to allow them to actually push in and get more aggressive.
Yeah, how unfortunate they lose their Kree while he was up on a flank, and then Skrull is just stuck down there, having to use the Mei wall just to give him some LOS. The immortality already being broken. He has no Kree to help him out in the stun, and they're having to take this brawl as Fade gets the 2K, managing to end up this fight and clean everything up.
That was honestly a really good poke from Red Sky. They found that Xylex was separated from the rest of Osiris, a little bit pushed up. I think they're trying to scout it out, but that's a free kill if you're playing the Sigma in this brawl composition, and you take those. You know, that's a huge amount of damage then gone for Osiris. You can just push in and take point like they did.
Yeah, look at that. Use the witness to find out the Lucio, and a massive shatter with the Mei wall blocking out the instant damage. They may have thrown out that window just to try to poke it out, but they weren't ready for Skrull to get his shatter off of the Fire Strike.
Yeah, I don't think they're ready for the burst damage coming in from the Matrix Fire Strike combo. That really just opened up the entire fight again. If you lose your McCree first, that's a huge portion of the damage. Maybe a little bit less so for Red Sky because of that Sigma. Speaking of which, he has the Gravitate Flux. I'd expect to see that come out in this next fight, especially because Snowy isn't particularly close to that beat quite yet.
Yeah, Red Sky can try to just jump on point, worst enemy team. Their tank gets frozen. He's going to be popping out the Gravitic Flux while the point swaps over. There's no defensive ult, but they're going to be throwing out the Blizzard and Diva Bomb, hoping to just make something out. Moth managing to find out the Kree and get the remake kill on top of the Lucio. It's very unfortunate. Now he's going to be looking in, popping the Mei ability. Osiris bringing the fight back as there's only 2 tanks left. The Sound Barrier hoping to sustain them, while the Mei and Diva are just ending up these fights, and they bring it back from the break of disaster.
These fights are so incredibly scrappy. Both teams, you can see their ult economies are a little bit in channels, but at the same time, I can't say that any of the ultimates, individually speaking, were wasted, because the fight was winnable when they were using them. Now, of course, you have the High Noon as well as the Matrix. They go from Krungo.
Yeah, look at that. The immortality helping them get through that small choke, but they're still split. They lose their Reinhardt in the rotation, and that Sigma's just going to be going down real fast. Now they're just basically walking in, touching spawns, just to clean up the Red Sky.
Osiris has a distinct advantage here, because if they can get on top of Red Sky, Happy Feet's going to have a really difficult time dealing with someone who's at point-blank range. Of course, he's going to be damaging himself, but he just does more damage and finds more value when he's a little bit further away like this.
They used the Mei wall perfectly to cast them into the rotation and immediately shut down both of the tank line. They have no ability to sustain themselves, and everyone else is just trying to run away. And it looks like the Red Skies are just dying at this point. The blood, you know?
Yeah, they are getting into one fight territory. They should be able to touch, but they're probably going to have to use the beat to engage, and probably the Matrix a little bit into the fight. Thankfully for Red Sky, Osiris doesn't have any ultimates immediately online, so this might be a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, they find out jams. They use the window, hopefully, to find a target. They manage to get out Skrull, so there's no main tank, but they've lost that Sigma. The Diva Bomb going up sky high, looking for a target, managing to make some room, but not finding a target. The Mei wall now helping them, the immortality helping to save out, but they've lost their tank while the creep gets down. Fade not being able to sustain himself very long. The Sound Barrier now coming into the fight, helping that to just lower the chances, but the Blizzard gets eaten, and that comeback chance is just lowered as the Sound Barrier is hit for a wait for Osiris, and now all that's left is a ball and Mei, as they're just trying to do their best to do anything, but they have to build up ult. Fade is coming back with a High Noon, and that's their one win condition when it comes to this fight. But look at that, Skrull's now going down, they're looking to stun, but not able to find it now. Zinc has his High Noon, looking to pop the immortality. He's managing to save too, but he's still looking to end this fight, not being able to find a target as the Reinhardt comes back and is just looking to end people. The ball being able to sustain themselves, and it looks like they bring it back barely from almost a loss.
That was a very costly but a very incredible retake from Red Sky. It's very dicey at times. Alex was lighting up the kill feed for what felt like forever. Thankfully for Red Sky, they managed to get enough chunky targets onto the point where Love McCree couldn't take them out reasonably. So neither team really has too many ultimates, but if Skrill can find a decent shatter, they probably could just completely retake the fight.
Yeah, they use the immortality very aggressively to help themselves engage, especially for the Mei wall. Pops the shatter, just a hit too, but there's a freeze managing to kill off Skrull, not being able to do much, and that Blizzard's just gonna help melt everyone up. Red Sky's now bringing this to one fight territory. They definitely want to bring this back.
Yeah, and now Red Sky, as the defense, has a slight ult advantage. They're going to have a shatter of their own, as well as the beat, which is probably going to be the most crucial ultimate in this upcoming fight, assuming Osiris can even touch. They might just Mei wall him off. Yeah, I don't think they can touch.
Oh, they might be able to. Look at that Shatter managing to come out, hit some May. They use the immortality to sustain themselves. The Demon Bomb not being able to cap anybody out. But look at that. Fade is able to find 2, evening up this fight and managing that window, not being able to find much value, being shot horizontally. And Fade is at the shooting range, being able to almost get 6K. But it looks like his team wants to just finish things out. And we're going to be seeing Red Skies bring it back and manage to take the first point.
That was really good composure, honestly, from the entire team. From Red Sky to bring it back from what felt like a foregone conclusion all the way from like, what, 50 to 99 all the way up to 199 in their favor. So that's really good. However, the caveat here being that mech base is sort of an anomaly in Busan. None of the other rounds are like it. So if it was that close and it was slightly in favor of Red Sky, who knows if these next 2 rounds are going to favor Osiris's playstyle or preferred composition slightly more. Or maybe it was just a team-wide teamwork coordination thing that allowed Red Sky to push ahead, just inch that tiny bit forward to the victory, in which case they might still remain in the lead. I would expect Fade to swap off of the Symmetra after everyone teleports. Yeah, sure enough, Symmetra's not really going to be good in this point in particular after the initial TP.
They managed to get there first by a bit. Both Maywells coming out the charge. Engine hit out. Maxi was already picked off. It was so unfortunate. And it looks like Osiris, because the Kree wasn't there to be able to stun anyone out of that charge, they just managed to take over the point.
Yeah, well, that happens when you lose your Mei almost immediately into the fight. Communist Max getting unluckily charged from Skrill. And that's a huge amount of utility for Red Sky immediately gone. Now, of course, you have Krunkro and Skrill relatively high up on their ult charge. So, coming into this next fight, the Red Sky is going to be a little bit behind.
Yeah, look at that. The Maywell coming out, both immortalities being used to try to help them, but looks like the Kree on the side of Osiris is being able. So much here, but the Shatter managing to hit everyone and give them the opportunity to find that opening. Look at that, they're just putting so much pressure on the tanks. The Baptiste is only doing so much. Having to use, and oh no, brief lag inside the lobby, but doesn't even matter as it looks like Red Sky are being able to win out the point, and especially from Kuno having to use that window.
That was a really good shatter from Red Sky. They noticed that Krunko had used their lamp a little bit early in the fight, so they didn't have the immortality field. And that allowed them to just clean up the fight after if they got a good shatter, which they did. It was a really good shatter at everyone besides the Mei, I believe. Suboptimal being in their ice block, and that's basically just 5 free kills at that point.
And now look, now they're meeting back inside the bongo area. That Blizzard managing to hit absolute everyone, but the immortality's still there. The sound barrier used just to sustain them a bit, but it's not looking so great because everyone on their team is just being one-shotted by Sub. And now they're having to back up. They just want to kind of stall this point out for a bit, but the ult are on the favor of Osiris for the upcoming fight.
Yeah, that was honestly, I want to point out Snowy there because it wasn't really caught onto the feed, but they booped almost everyone from Red Sky into Suboptimal's Blizzard so that they couldn't escape, which is mildly sadistic, and as a main support myself, I appreciate that kind of play.
Oh, you gotta love it. Lucio has so much value in this game, and it looks like he's gonna be enabling his team to do so much more. That Maywell comes out, blitz half of the team. They kind of look Moth to get High Noon. Unfortunate, so Lynx is gonna be trying to use that High Noon. Manages to get through the window, evening up this fight. Managing to find out that Reinhardt, now nobody's able to do much without their main tank. They're just mainly gonna be back in the spawn room.
Yeah, Fade getting a little bit of a stagger there, but not terrible, not the worst stagger we've seen in the world. Kind of a funny wall from Suboptimal, ended up killing their own diva. I don't think Moth had any of their jump packs or booster packs available, so they just were fodder at that point. But then Red Sky pushed into the point. I don't think they were expecting the High Noon from Xylix, and that cleaned up 2 immediately because they weren't expecting it.
Yeah, look at that engaging Diva Bomb. They're being able to throw it out, forcing the shield. It's broken. They're not going to be able to do anything. The Shatter! Oh, manages to find 3. The absolute coordination helps them win this fight, and they might be able to secure it. There is nobody on Red Skies to be able to stall this out, and it looks like Osiris is going to be winning this part of the point.
That was honestly a lot less close than Mech Base, and I guess if you're a Red Sky fan, that's a little bit of what you fear, because again, Mech Base is a little bit different from either of the rounds that can come after. So, coming into this next point, yeah, it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, seeing double bubble. I wasn't expecting that. but I love to see it. So the main thing that these teams are going to want to be doing now for Double Bubble is just cycling their monkeys, their Winston's Bubble Shield, as well as their Zarya's Team Barrier. As because if they overlap them, the survivability of the Winston on these teams are probably going to be like 0.5 seconds tops. There's a lot of burst damage. There's not a lot of healing through the shields, so they need to be very careful, as well as potentially the Winston's having to use their jump pack to disengage as opposed to dive in.
I'll tell you what, Actor, you're giving a lot of love for these things, thinking they'll survive for 0.5 seconds. You can see the engage already going out. The bubble is now shattered, and look at the Skrill not being able to live for more than a second. The Echo trying to bring this up by finding out Itachi, but you know, he has his Genjutsu up, you're just unable to finish it out, and the entirety of Red Sky is just on the point, sitting, waiting for people to start coming on. They're going to be trying to brawl in, but unfortunately, they're just pushing out without their tank.
The main word that I like to attribute to Double Bubble is honestly patience, because it's not a very fast-paced composition. It's almost really not a dive aside from using the Winston. You have to be very careful with your engagements, or that happens.
Yeah, because Skrull just goes in, uses the bubble really early, and then gets shut down. It's so unfortunate. Faye just trying to go on the angle, manages to find out Kuno. That's exactly what you want to see from McCree. Now he's just putting so much pressure onto the Zarya, but gets found out by Mob. So unfortunate that high charge Zarya is just going to be able to walk out free.
Yeah, well, there's only so much you can do there. You saw some stats from Fade. This round, and Mech Base has just been lighting up the kill feed non-stop on the Kree. Looks like Communist Max is going to be looking for a cheeky pulse bomb. They will find onto the brick!
Who finds the Tracer with it? That's so unfortunate. They were so clumped up together that the Brig wasn't even able to back up fast enough.
They did manage to keep Kronko out of line of sight from the pulse bomb, but Xylix wasn't quite as lucky. Coming into this next fight, however, I'd probably expect to see from Osiris, Mothfan rather, try to use the Graviton Surge rather early. Red Sky doesn't have anything immediately to counter it.
Yeah, Fade using the high noon, looking to just block some sights, isn't able to really find a pick, and Skrull manages to find out Itachi. Without that nano support, they're just going to be lacking down as the rally now goes offline. Looks like Zims is able to find it to the Primal Rage, finding out the monkey to mirror this up. Same with the copy. Looks like Osiris is going to be able to win this point, but this is very much in last fight territory. And they use the grab from the copy.
No, the copy grab.
Worried for a second.
Yeah, no, there's only so much you can do when your copy is about to run out, and you say, well, I have a grab, so let's try. I don't blame Suboptimal for that. Mothfan crucially does have the Graviton Surge. I was expecting that to be used in the previous fight, but I guess they wanted to use the Nano Boost first, which makes sense, you know, Skrill giving him a little bit of extra survivability, a little bit of engage here. I'm not sure how much Red Sky is going to want to take this versus just disengage and heal everyone back up.
Yeah, they're already backing up. It looks like they kind of want to wait down. They're now going through the choke, that bubble being used. But Moth is waiting to use the Graviton Surge, not having the perfect opportunity. Now the Kree drops down. Communist having to just look for a pick, and Fade just is unfortunately picked out. And that Primal gets used to try to move people in unfavored positions. But it's just more of like hugging them because he's not really able to do much. Look at this. You're just kind of at this slow poke phase of this double bubble composition, which is not often, as you see. Even the anti-grenade is just kind of not being valued on.
Yeah, well, that was sort of an anti-nade thrown out by Itachi on the disengage, so they couldn't really push it into that, especially since they had lost Fade, I believe.
Yeah, now Kuno's going in with the nano boost and the 200 damage per second beam. Is just able to absolutely slaughter them. They use their abilities first, only having to use one ultimate in that entire fight, and that's what you want to see when coming into such a dangerous area of the game.
Yeah, and crucially, Mothfan still has the Graviton Surge, hasn't needed to use it at all yet, and I think that speaks to how well Osiris is taking these early engagements. I wouldn't even call them full fights. They're just kind of like poking in, maybe investing one or two ults here or there, and that's really all they need. Now, crucially, Red Sky, because they've been losing these fights so demandingly, they have a lot of ultimates.
Yeah, now look at that. They managed to find out the break in the back. They're going to be shutting them down with the Graviton Surge, with the 2K coming out of Communist Max. Might be able to even this up. However, the DPS and tanks are still alive as Skrull using that Primal Rage just to boot people around. There's nothing you can do when you're on the point because Osiris is just more than a name. They are the Egyptian gods, and they're just going to be finishing off this Tracer who's just lacking on point. Communist Max not being able to do much to rally, just being used to try to get to point. Going to be barely able to touch, and manage to find out that Echo might help them out with this Graviton Surge. The bubble being used just to block off a bit of damage, and Sound Barrier going out, but against Ajax in the air, not unfortunately being to come out. The Duke is there looking to just fist somebody, but not being able to get out much. Now the ball just touching in, but however, Hammond's not that very good anymore, and the Tracer's just not able to touch fast enough because it looks like Osiris is going to be taking the map lead in the game.
That was an extremely close round in particular, and honestly a rather close map. The first 2 rounds kind of went back and forth a bit. Downtown there went the distance, if I were to say. Oh, here you have, yep, this turned it around for Osiris for a brief period. They were not expecting that.
No, and that's honestly one of the things you just need to do. A lot of what Reinhardt's, at least what I like to do, is you kind of just hope that they're not going to expect the shatter. You just slam it down, and they'll be like, well, I should have blocked it, and it's just so unfortunate. Osiris's coordination, especially on the double bubble, looked so good. They were very patient when they took their time, instead of just, Scroll just jumping inside the backline, hoping to get some value.
Yeah, definitely. The first few engagements from Osiris on that double bubble, I think, were sort of the testing grounds of like, okay, wait, how do we run this? And after a few feeds, it becomes a little bit easier to say, okay, well, let's not just dive in alone, because a double bubble, aside from like a Tracer maybe, you don't really have anyone who can dive in with the Winston, which is why I consider it personally more of like a brawl composition, where you kind of have to just walk up to the enemy team and laser them down, or taser them, I guess in this case, and then use your jump pack to disengage to allow your healers, specifically your Ana, to burst heal you back up, and then you can walk back up to the enemy team. By the time you're getting low again, you'll probably have jump pack. That's how you have to cycle the bubbles, so that the time in between having to jump out and wanting to go in, you can survive the point of walking up to the enemy team. And Osiris just did a really great job there.
Yeah, but let's give some credit to Red Skies. I think Fade has been doing a phenomenal job on that McCree. The angles are taken out perfectly, only really got punished once for being out of position, but otherwise Fade is helping to secure these fights by stunning in the tank line. Half of Cyrus's main tank has just been sitting there being stunned out, which has enabled them to just run on them, especially when it came to that double bubble. The monkey was stunned out before they could leap away, and they would just secure the fight.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, in terms of comparing these two teams, I'd say just about everyone seems very close to their counterpart on almost every single role. I think we'll need to see a few more maps to get a better idea of like who's outperforming who in that case. But in this first map of Busan, it felt like everything was relatively close, and I think that showed in the control percentage for 2 out of the 3 points as well.
Oh, I do agree, but let's be real, Mr. Acronator. We're going on to map 2, and map 2 is very much hybrid. There's a lot of categories that you can go with, but we're going with King's Row, everybody's bread and butter. The Omnic homicide happens here, happens every day. Now, Mr. Acronator, how do you feel about King's Row? Because this is such a brawl-intensive map.
Yeah, we're certainly not going to be seeing any double bubble unless these teams really want to throw a monkey wrench in the works. I would fully expect just to see the May McCree, Lucio, Baptiste, Reinhardt, probably Zarya. You could play Diva. You could technically play the Sigma, but I'd expect the Zarya because she's so much fun. Why not play her? Yeah, I'm pretty much just expecting that. Run it down main. You know, the good old-fashioned...
You know what I'm expecting, Mr. Acronator? I'm expecting AC-130, and if you don't know what that composition is, that's where the attackers pick a Symmetra Bastion and just place them on top of the shrine of the old monument and just absolutely mow down. It's such a cheesy composition that I've seen a lot of teams end up running, and it works to a lot of favors because you can only beat it if you don't expect it.
Pretty much, no. Yeah. So, if one of these teams do decide to run, it doesn't look like they are. Interestingly enough, for now, keep in mind Red Sky is on the offense, so they can swap it up at the final second. But Fade seems to want to tease the Hanzo, and it is the other viable option outside of the McCree that we see rather commonly.
Oh, listen, Mr. Akinator, I love the Hanzo pick over the Kree. That just plays to a more aggressive play style. Headshots are much easier to land and get value on. Storm Arrow basically just breaks down your shield, and Moth is just gonna have to put so much pressure onto the Hanzo that they can't put attention onto the tanks.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to allow for a lot more burst damage, a lot more pick potential randomly, because Fade doesn't necessarily need to be aiming at anything. If you've ever played Hanzo, you would know. But it looks like he's going to be swapping over to the Kree. He was just looking for a quick Sonic Arrow, probably, to make sure no one was doing anything cheeky on the defense.
Fade, no longer my favorite of Red Skies, as they're now going in through this choke. So much poke already hitting out Loli's shield and just having to play a bit more carefully. That wall coming out, managing to block them off. The stun missed the immortality, managing to save out Loli just barely inside of this fight. Well, the immortality is now gone. They're just looking to find some type of opening as the Reinhardts are now meeting on this point. But Loli is so dangerously low. They just have to back up a bit, but they don't want to stop pressing W. They just want to keep in, finding in the valleys. So Freeze almost manages to hit off Scroll, just having to shield out so much, but that window comes up first, and it just breaks down the shield. Now everyone else on Osiris is just trying to poke out and find some value, but everyone on the side of Red Skies is just hitting W. They're saying, no, you can't have this point.
That was honestly just a little bit of a weird and slow rotation from Osiris that allowed Red Sky to find the angles that they wanted, specifically to allow Fade to just kind of run amok on the point. And I mean, you could see he basically already has High Noon, as opposed to Xylex only being 3/4 of the way there. So it really shows in terms of the old percentages, like who did how much work in that previous fight. Itachi already used the Amp Matrix. I don't know if they necessarily needed it, but I mean, hey, cherry on the top, I guess.
I do agree. Now they're both meeting at this choke. Look at that window being used so early. They had to use the Maywa to try to block off, try to stop the Reinhardt from moving, but they're just unable to. Now we're going to be seeing a pause come in before the fight can really commence. But Acronator, we saw that Osiris has two ultimates, specifically the Blizzard and the Shatter. Those are very big ultimates on their side.
Yeah, from the look of it, Osiris is in the middle of Krunko is using their Amp Matrix as well, so there's going to be a lot of poke damage coming in from that. My guess is they're going to let that play out, see if they can't get any cheeky picks from anyone on Red Sky, poking forward just a little bit too much, and then see if they want to invest the Shatter or the Blizzard. Probably not the Blizzard quite yet. I mean, that's a fight-winning ultimate by itself, especially on such a close quarters area like King's Row. So they can just kind of ride out the fight, see if they absolutely need to, and if it gets into like do or die situation where they don't want to lose any more progress on the cart, they can just toss in the Blizzard, be like, okay, we're winning this fight, just default to pressing Q from the Mei.
Oh, Blizzard, one of the most annoying abilities, in my opinion. But honestly, if they just throw it out and their diva doesn't end up eating it, that's pretty much a team fight win. So when you come to Red Skies, I feel like fundamentally you just kind of want to end the fight before anything happens. You have the advantage, you have the ability to just start running in, especially with what they did on point one. I think this is kind of their game plan.
Yeah, definitely. I think Red Sky thus far has shown that they can play this extremely fast tempo. Despite how slow they played on mech base for Busan, they've shown a lot of versatility in how fast they want to play the game. So I didn't see if they were in the middle of casting any ultimates to answer Krunko's Amp Matrix, so we'll have to see if anyone pressed Q on Red Sky. But I wouldn't be shocked if they want to invest the High Noon, for example, from Fade.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised either. That's just kind of what most people do, especially I feel like a pause can sometimes reset momentum. It can cause a panic as we're going back into the game, and now the teams have already just meeting back up. Now the High Noon is set up. Fade is just ready, looking for some value. Manages to get the stun on Q, but that Blizzard and High Noon are thrown out. Manages to find out Itachi in the backline, and now they're just able to win out. Sure, Communist managed to use his Blizzard, but it didn't catch anyone on the side of Osiris to stop them from moving up.
That was a really beautiful micro play from Osiris in general, because you saw that right before Suboptimal used the Blizzard, Happy Feet was demeched. And that's the easiest way to avoid your Blizzard from getting eaten. You know, there's always that risk of the diva is just cracked out of their mind, pull off a Fury Flick or something along those lines. So just demecking her is the easiest way to get rid of it.
Oh, so unfortunate. The Immortality wasn't able to save out Krill in the High Noon, and now everyone on Red Skies is just using that momentum to start walking all over them. The High Noon got so much value because they just sped up on it. It looks like the remake just isn't able to get a kill. How unfortunate with the 250 damage it now has. Everyone's still on Osiris, stalling this out interestingly enough. More impressed. That's going to cause them a bit of stagger, but at least they cost a few seconds.
Yeah, well, they are giving Red Sky some ult percentage. I mean, when you look at the ultimates that they have online, it's really just Shatter and Amp Matrix, so the offense is going to have a little bit of a difficult time getting to this final approach of The second point, it's always so difficult when the spawn advantage is slightly in favor of the defense here. And when you look at Osiris, they have everything aside from their DPS ultimates. There's a lot to work with here for them.
Yeah, they're going to be using that window. The Demon Bomb goes out, but they're pretty much hidden far behind it. Now they're just caught inside. Disrupted, picked out by Itachi, just inside of the room. The sound barrier being used, hopefully, to try to make a difference. Same with the window, but they're just going to start pressing W, walking past it. Loli just going dangerously low, but gets healed up, focusing down that May, not being able to do much. Now look at them, they're just trying to do their best. The High Noon Remake managing to find out Communist. The High Noon isn't able to get anyone besides from the Diva, and it looks like Moth is just doing his best to make time for Scroll to come back to the fight. They're going to be having the Shatter. Look at that, the Reinhardt just re-engaging in, but deciding, haha, no, they win that point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, there's only so much a lone Reinhardt can do other than feed, like 500 some odd HP for the ult economy of Red Sky. So yeah, especially because they had so many people still on the point from Red Sky, in particular Communist Max. That's probably going to dissuade a lone Reinhardt.
I can definitely see that. Now we're at the last phase of the point, and Fade has High Noon. The moment that this team starts to engage, they're going to be ready to use it. Right now they're in this slow poke. Lumpus going dangerously low, having to back up their shield very low at half. The Maywall going out, unable to find anyone, but they still commit the Blizzard. The wall gets used just to try to save it. The May manages to find them out. No immortality. The Shatter now evening things up, but they aren't able to get much. But the Sound Barrier manages to save them. Now they're not being thrown in as just a contingency. Snowy managing to find out Itachi. But everyone else on the side of Osiris died by at least one different ultimate.
Yeah, if you were watching Red Sky's side of the screen, they used every ultimate they had. That was literally 6 ults. And the defense isn't done yet, so this is going to get dicey for Red Sky's offense here, especially because Suboptimal has that Blizzard. I expect to see that come out right about now.
Happy Feet gets immediately demet, so they just decide to invest it in. And Red Sky, by this point, understand, hey, let's not aggress without our Diva. We're just going to let them win. They use 2 ultimates, so it doesn't matter. But they still find out Jams randomly.
Yeah, Jams got caught out, unfortunate. Especially because they have enough time, but they don't want to waste too much time. They would like to capture the point with right around the time bank they currently have. That's a decent time bank going into King's Row.
And now look, that Demon Bomb being thrown behind the Reinhardt. The Maple wasn't able to really save anyone. They just broke it down.
No.
That's a 2K, and now look, Skrill is just walking all over. They said, we don't care about your 3-minute time bank. We're just going to start killing you before you can get inside your spawn room. And that is the type of pressure you want. Now look, they'll be rotating ultimates, now having the Shatter life and both support ults.
Yeah, ultimately, this was the danger of Red Sky using the 6 ultimates in a singular fight, is that they had nothing to deal with these staggered respawns from Osiris. They had enough time on the card progress to just wait it out and fully recontest. And since that point, Osiris has had a solid defense just because Red Sky hasn't had a chance to use any new ultimates.
Yeah, Fade using the High Noon, looking to just find someone out, but he gets the Mecha Mob. That Shatter hits the corner and just isn't able to climb up to find a single target. That Immortality now played very aggressively. The wall splits them, and they use the Sound Barrier just to help them engage onto Loli. Not being able to do much, they just all have to back up while Moth manages to find out Jam. They let it happen. They walked in front of it.
They were trying to take out Mothman, but Krunko is doing a great job of keeping the baby Diva alive. I think it was a foregone conclusion that Osiris was going to take control of the fight anyways, because they had the distinct player advantage there, but you love to see it if you're an Osiris fan. And now Suboptimal and Communist Max both have Blizzard, so I'd probably okay, well, Suboptimal not anymore.
They get Suboptimal with the Window Fire Strike. Now there's no Blizzard stopping them. They're just using the High Noon to try to slow this fight down as much as possible. But everyone on Osiris is saying, no, let's back up. We gotta give some respect on their name because they still have a Blizzard and we have a Blizzard. Unfortunately, Jams does have this Sound Barrier, so that's going to give Red Skies the advantage when it comes to this. Look at that Maywall already blocking them off, and they use it first, but now the counter Maywall from Suboptimal being popped out. The Sound Barrier being used just to sustain them a little bit, but it looks like they're going to be able to find out the Reinhardt. They're going to be looking for this May on the point. Everyone else on Red Skies just doing their best. The Immortality now on side of the point. Suboptimal walling themselves off, but that Demon Bomb's there, and they're just being able to watch out, but Crunk is it, as look at that, the Demon Bomb counter just using, and it's still somebody who will fight the Remake managing to find out Jams. I don't think anyone will let that happen. The only people left are the Kree coming back with the High Noon, just being able to find out people. Moth is the only person on this point, and it looks like they're going to be able to bring it back before Scroll can touch point with Shatter.
That was tragic because it was a brief period where Olympus wasn't back to the point, and Skrill had a shatter. They were like, what, 0.2 seconds away, but they couldn't touch. Otherwise, that could have been an absolutely massive shatter for like 4 people, and maybe Osiris took it to overtime, if not just stopped the cart before a full cap. Either way, bring it down from like, what, 4 minutes to like 25-ish is pretty good on Osiris's part. You know, they still have to capture all 3 points, but it's not the hardest map to do that in King's Row compared to like a lot of 2CP maps, or say like Eichenwald, which is much harder to capture third point just because the respawn advantage is a little bit more aggressive on various other maps, whereas King's Row, at least they have the little turn, you know, to dampen the amount of time it takes for them to get back.
I definitely see what you mean. Unfortunately, with those 25 seconds, that gives Red Skies the ability to have another attack if Osiris is just unable to capture all 3 points. So, that means Osiris needs to get a time higher than just at least a minute. They just need a minute to make a chance. There's still the possibility of a tie, but it looks like both of these teams are just wanting to run the same mirror, same composition.
Yeah, definitely. No real surprises here. This is bog standard meta for this map. I could see maybe if this goes into extra rounds, we might see the fabled AC 130 strategy, but otherwise, I'm fully just expecting to see. Okay, well, we do have a brief disconnect from Xylix, so unfortunate there, but at least it was right when the gates opened, so it's not like the old economy is going to be all messed up now. They're not going to be losing any percentage, quite literally, on the high noon.
Like the DC is the equivalent of like stubbing your toe or falling, because they're just walking out the door and then immediately boom, it's gone. So they're just gonna have to wait. But I definitely feel Osiris is not out of the fight yet. They did manage to bring that very close, but I think what they need to start fixing up is their ability usage. They would have won that last fight, but their target focus just lacked a tiny bit, especially the Blizzard. It was focused on everyone who was blocked by a Maywall. So everyone just walked around the box, and Blizzard works by LOS. So if you're not in the Blizzard's LOS, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, not even speaking about ultimates, but just like the Mei Wall in particular, Communist Max seems to be doing a much better job of making it awkward for Osiris's tanks on this map, where they don't really have any breathing room, whereas um, Osiris's Mei Walls have been a little bit less impactful. They've been more like defensive almost, to block any like crucial ultimates like High Noon or Bomb, for example. But that's not necessarily what you want to use it for. You know, if you can use that Maywall first, create the tempo for your team to push in and punish Red Sky in this case, then that's probably more favorable than trying to use it reactionary.
Yeah, we are going to be sending this to a hold while we have some player difficulty, some background things. So please do stay in tuned as we come back for the Osiris versus Red Sky GGNA game, GGU game. Sorry. Welcome back, everyone. We are still currently with the Osiris versus Red Sky games. However, due to some technical difficulties, a player had to be subbed in, causing Osiris having to just give up the game. So Red Sky is obviously going to be bringing this in. Now we have a tied game. So I have to say, I'm a bit disappointed, but things happen out of our control, you know?
Yeah, and unfortunately, can't really control everything that's going on within or without the lobby. So, series is tied up. I'm sure Osiris would have liked to actually fight it, you know, try and take that winning King's Row. But at the very least, they are the only team that has won a map in the traditional sense thus far. You know, so they thus far have played pretty well. The next map will be Gibraltar. Speaking of which, and we could see more traditional dive, or we could see the double bubble once again. Both compositions are rather viable on Gibraltar, and Osiris did show the better double bubble in one round of Busan earlier this series, so we may get to see that some more. It really depends on how Osiris can swap things around, you know, with this new substitute coming in, and see how they can keep things rolling if they can.
You definitely agree. Gibraltar is still one of those very popular maps where you often see people just wanting to I guess play a more aggressive dive composition, especially on towards that second point. It's a lot of take your actions early, which Osiris has shown that's their favorite form of play style. Obviously, we've made jokes about Skrill dying first when we were on Busan. They were just inside the enemy team and just unable to live. So when we go out in this, we have to see how they're going to be kind of playing around Fade, if they're going to be punished or not.
Yeah, and I know we mentioned that a sub is coming in. Specifically, it will be Whiskey for Mothfan. So a little bit of an off-tank swap up for Osiris. So, however, Whiskey is on the team sheet as a substitute, so I would hope and expect that they at least have some familiarity with this player. You know, may not be their starter, but at the very least, they should be able to pull this together. Now, it is worth noting that Osiris is on the offense first in terms of the compositions. It looks like both are opting to play this double bubble. I wouldn't be shocked to see Osiris swap Xylex over to a Tracer after the teleporter comes out, and otherwise this is looking pretty normal.
Yeah, look at that. Xylex using the teleporter just to get onto the to the right side, the other side of the high ground. They just want to be able to kind of poke out, not really taking much of aggression, but there you have their monkey pushing on that payload, so they don't have to worry about too much. Now they're engaging in that bubble being used just to kind of damage it off, and what an amazing use of positioning they have in the back up. Kami is just so scared to push out from the Ana and just damage. Even the Zarya gets left on the side of Whiskey, just having to back up. That Echo going dangerously low, getting healed. So now they just have to back up the stun, and the perfect bubble stops them from being stunned. Now look at that, Skrill's just putting in so much damage on them, but Fade is just evenly as well, forcing the DPS to stay back and not have any room. The payload's reached very much underneath them directly. So now they're just waiting. Fade looking to just find out that Tracer or somebody, almost getting one clip, 63 health, 59 now, barely surviving while everyone else is just diving back onto the high ground. Almost managed to find out Zinx, but barely being able to escape. Now Skrill has the primal, while Loli's just at 50%. Now they find out Itachi, that's not going to be looking good. They're just starting to walk in and finding out Jams do no support on their side. The Beam now managing to find out Lumpus, and what a kind of very good poke coming out of Osiris.
Yeah, as we saw in downtown Busan, it took them a little while to figure out how to keep Skrill alive, but once they did, they had a considerably better double bubble showing, and it's kind of continuing here. They're playing a little bit more passive, which is what you need to do, but they're still holding on to that aggression when it's appropriate, especially with suboptimal onto this Echo. It's a lot of burst damage, and Fade is having a really tough time trying to figure out whether he has to deal with Xylex on the Tracer or suboptimal on the Echo.
On the bright side, Itachi does have this nano ability, and they find two early on. They aggressed before they can really have their Tracer come to follow up. So now everyone on the side of Osiris is just kind of holding this point, but either way, they're not going to be able to aggress.
Yeah, this isn't the best place for Osiris to be stopped in their offense, because these really 3 or 4 choke points that they have to push through are not exactly the easiest doorways to get through unless they all push in as a team, and even then, you see Olympus getting nanoed.
Yeah, the Echo gets nanoed, but immediately goes into copy. That gets rid of the nano ability. Now the Primal Rage coming out from copy. They managed to find out the Tracer. What a great job to do. And they're just consistently moving people around, making sure that they cannot save their break. But she's perfectly fine. She's just being able to live. Now the Primal coming down to Loli just to be able to move people around. They still have 4 ults on the side of Red Sky, being able to find out Fade off the high ground. That's no High Noon coming out of this fight. Still, the ability is somewhat equal. They just want to move the payload as much as they can. This Echo loading to just burn down. The Graviton Surge being used. They're putting in so much poke. The bubble was just falling down, not being able to hit onside the bridge. And now Osiris using the rally just to make sure they can get some armor, some sustain, while they stagger the rest of Red Sky.
Yeah, Red Sky are going to have to back out. They might be able to get a recontest. Looks like they want to, and they will actually stop the card. But the bubble comes out just to save Zinx, and Fade uses the new finds too. Zinx almost kills himself with a Demon Bomb, but Fade here just looking to make people have to go through a transition because they're just not able to get that last second push, but they have to commit about 4 ultimates from that last fight. That was very costly from Red Sky's ult economy, which, I mean, they've had problems with that on their attack in King's Row even. So they're coming into this, they're really only going to have the nano boost, which they can probably throw onto Olympus just to get him up to that Primal Rage a little bit faster. Whereas when you look at Osiris, they're going to be getting closer to that duplicate as well as the mana boost, and Skrill already has that primal, so there's a little bit of chunkiness, I guess, to his health bar.
Look, they're just taking their time, patiently waiting. Now that dive goes out, the grenade already used. That primal does not get to come out, just gets melted by everyone. Faye being there to stun out, Whiskey just having to back up. Sure, they managed to find out a touch, but without that monkey, there's just nothing they can do. So look at that, the Echo tries to do as much as they can, but Suboptimal can only do so much, manages to find out Fade. I wish I was Suboptimal, you know? Just being able to walk around at the Echo and start burning people down, making the dream happen. Now we see slowly just using the primal, hoping to make something happen. Itachi now back into the fight. He's gonna pop out the nano. Looking to be evening this up. Gets out the pulse coming. Kills themselves with it. How unfortunate. However, Snowy and Whiskey is just there to help clean up the fight, and it looks like they're gonna be able to capture the second point.
That had to have been a really well-placed bubble from Happy Feet that ended up killing Xylix with his own pulse bomb, because Itachi was stuck, and the only way to purge that is with a Zarya bubble in this case. Really well played, but the target focus was just there. I think Osiris is out for blood at this point. They had to forfeit the King's Row, and they're like, never again.
Yeah,
they're still going.
Graviton Surge gets used. Sure, Faye manages to find out the Tracer, but they're still going. They said we wanted a 3-0. I promised my mom.
Well, either way, the defense does have both of their DPS ultimates, so they're going to have a little bit of threat from that. However, Snowy does have the rally, and Suboptimal's coming up onto that duplicate. I'd expect to see Snowy use their ultimate rather soon just to push into that final approach.
That's already going out. Look at the monkey diving back. The high noon being used. Looking to find a target. Scroll gets anti, not being able to save themselves. Looks like Fade not being able to finish out the Tracer. However, they pretty much end the fight by getting rid of that monkey. That everyone else is just so low on the side of Osiris. Sure, Suboptimal manages to find out the pick and is using the copy, but it gets broken out very quickly by by Jams. Now they're just looking to use that rally, that sustain until their monkey comes back, but the rally's being mirrored!
Rally.
Especially with the Nano. The raid with Nano is genuinely very terrifying. Look at her just go, being able to just do so much damage. Happy Feet now gone, the monkey back into this fight, just looking to pick people off. Everyone on the side of Osiris is just looking to target focus someone, but they're on a different target. It's kind of going very, very slow. Red Skies being able to pop out the primal, they might have a winning position coming back. The grabbing that surge from Happy Feet may open things up, and everyone else is starting to die. Having to use the solo look for the advantage, but the pulse bomb manages to find them out, and looks like they're going to be able to capture, because the Doomfist isn't going to be able to do much with 1 minute and 24 seconds, and Osiris just didn't stop at some points.
I really want to give a lot of credit to Suboptimal. It felt like literally every 5 seconds someone was dying to his death ray, and that's massive when you're Echo. You really have to be able to find those picks in the fray of the insanity. You know, you have to find... It's honestly like a more extreme version of Genji Dash, except, you know, it's half HP instead of like 30 HP that you want to use it. Realistically, Suboptimal just doing a really great job here. You can see some of the stats on the board, and the amount of final blows. Literally, that's like what, 51% final blows out of all the elims they have. 2 deaths, 25 and 2. That's ridiculous.
It's absolutely insane, especially because of the fact that Suboptimal is building up the copy so quickly in these fights. I mean, sure, 3 ultimates were used, but we have to give some credit. Suboptimal just being able to do so much damage, while Fade is trying to mirror it as much. Fade isn't getting that much, isn't being kind of enabled to be able to shut down half of the people on Osiris.
Yeah, pretty much. It looks like we're seeing a little bit of a DPS swap up at the very least from Red Sky. It looks like they may even want to put Fade onto the Tracer potentially to fully mirror comp. However, Fade, I believe, is pretty much stuck onto their McCree universally, and it's almost universally viable. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them swap over to the Kree as well. Yep, just sim TP, let their team go out, and swap. Okay, so we're seeing a pure mirror composition.
Very mirrored. This is about who engages first and who gets more value out of the sticky. Scroll going to dive in, but gets kind of booped back by the whip from Jam. Very good. Has to use the mobility just to get out of that fight, or would have been picked off. Doing an amazing job of taking the slow fight. Now everybody's on top of this high ground, so Red Skies are just going to do what Osiris did on their attack and start this slow dive in. However, it looks like Osiris is taking, like, wants to go get Itachi in the backline. It's just so unfortunate they've lost their Ana now. and they're just unable to get much healing. So they still want to try to push this payload and do as much as they can. Skrill goes dangerously low, but it's just going to be saved by this Slick of their team. Jams now goes down, and the 200 damage per second manages to find out low. Remember, you don't have that Ana. Itachi's not there to see you. No pros in sight, so it looks like you're just going to have to wait for the next fight.
That is a perfect example of how you're supposed to play Winston in Double Bubble, is you have to play it, in this case, use the high ground to just drop down without using any cooldowns, use your jump pack to get back up to the high ground so that you survive. I mean, Skrill went to like, what, 50 HP there, and then somehow got out because it was a brilliant amount of peel, but also a really good idea of when they could no longer stay in the fight.
Yeah, now look at this, Suboptimal dies, but manages to pick up the Echo evenly. Skrill managed to find out their mirror match too, and the Nano gets used to help even out this fight. I do believe that they're just looking to kind of find people. Itachi just looking to do anything. You can't see me. Your hate's not strong enough, and Skrill just has to back up. The peel comes in, but they still want to commit into this fight. Suboptimal coming back with the copy, while Communist doesn't just have anything. The problem is used, and they find out Jam. It is so rude. There is no illusion to it, no magic, only skills. As Skrill is just being able to displace this Zarya. That high charge is now gone.
Itachi is not having a fun time. They're getting focused out to the nth degree by Skrill, and it's very obvious at this point. Like, Itachi's doing their best. They're building up Nano Boost relatively fast despite being focused down, which is impressive, but it's so hard when there's no peel coming in from the rest of your team.
Now look, already they're diving in while the monkey has to go use their jump to get back. They managed to find out the break, but now it's somewhat of an even fight. Still kind of there, but Suboptimal is alive and is going to use that copy to mirror the monkey. Now going to be jumping in, looking to do some mirror, but it looks like their copy's going to be broken. Now they get shut down by Fade. The monkey's returned on the side of Red Sky, and Whiskey just wants to back up. Has the Graviton Surge, but it's all alone at 70% and just wants to hold on to that charge.
Yeah, realistically, holding on to that damage charge for Whiskey is more valuable than trying to sell out the card, because they still have time, right? Red Sky only has about a minute and some change remaining, and there's plenty of ultimates on the side of Red Sky, so maybe even just wear down the clock.
But they used the stickies to shut down the Tracer, and that Graviton Surge managed to help find out Jams, who had popped out the rally. Now it's just looking to shut down the copy. They managed to use the Graviton Surge of their own. Suboptimal not being able to do much. Communist Max being able to even things up. Same with Itachi getting revenge on Skrull, who has just bodied them several times. And I mean, that did cost a fair amount of ultimates, so their entire ult economy is just as if they resetted their composition.
Basically, yeah, that's been one of the major problems here when it gets into the micro-analysis, is that Red Sky doesn't seem to have a huge plan of, like, how they're going to win these fights with, you know, 1 or 2 ultimates max, because otherwise you're starting to kill your ult economy when Osiris is winning these fights with, like, 2, maybe 3 at max.
Yeah, now look, Communist Max almost finds Suboptimal, but barely just misses a couple stickies. Now they're all fighting inside the small room. Skrill gets slept, but the bubble's there sustaining. The Primal isn't able to come out fast enough, but Communist Max gets traded in the end. Now the Nano's being placed onto the Echo to help build up some damage and hopefully get that ult during the mid-fight. And everyone else on Red Sky just wants to seem to back up. They seem unconfident to go in without their Echo.
Which is kind of ironic, because when you look at just the pure 2 picks that were gotten just prior to Jams being taken out, I would have to say that, you know, losing the Winston would be more valuable than losing the Echo, especially when you're running a Tracer along with it. That's still a good amount of sustained damage, but Red Sky just weren't confident with without their Echo. Maybe that was part of how they wanted to push in, but either way, they had to back out, and now Osiris has a pretty strong advantage in terms of ultimates. They have Skrill obviously still having the Primal Rage, not being able to use it last time. Xylex has had that.
Yeah, look at that. Itachi goes down, the beam coming out, and the copy to save Suboptimal's life, now body blocking the monkey, making sure that they cannot enter through this point. And that's just an unfortunate scenario where they pretty much took all the time that they had to kind of reset. So Zills says, you know what, I'm just going to pull spell Itachi and slow down the fight.
Yeah, and Suboptimal still just causing a complete ruckus. They didn't even get forced out of the duplicate, just let it run out of time. Got the Primal Rage, but it didn't really matter. Skrill still has the Primal as a huge health boost in the middle of a fight if they need it.
Yeah, now look, that beam goes down. Manages to find out Snowy because of the Primal Rage, just moving them around. Being able to bring this back. It looks like the Primals are still wanting to go at each other. The Zarya on the side of Happy Feet just not able to escape. That 200% Suboptimal. Man, I wish I was Suboptimal. I wish they would boost me in my games.
Well, If you're Red Sky, you finally have a decent amount of ultimates because they've just been losing these fights so aggressively that they really have only been able to use Olympus's Primal Rage in that previous fight to attempt to engage. So they have basically 5 ultimates, so they should be able to push the card at least a little bit further than where it's been.
Yep. Communist Max manages to get the copy right onto the monkey, but look at that Graviton Surge thrown into the air. They do manage to find out both the support lines and the monkey. Same with the Nano now coming out. They still have the advantage in here, especially with a couple staggers, but there is a recontest for the side of Osiris.
Definitely. However, they don't really have anything to recontest. They might have been able to save Whiskey's Graviton Surge, and I could see them having a stronger recontest, but right now I think they just want to get it down to overtime. They maybe even just give up second point. It looks like they're curious about whether they want to push in.
No, they want to waste ults. That's kind of the condition here. Janus has to use the rally to sustain. Same with the Graviton Surge. They do manage to find out Skrill just looking to end this fight as fast as possible. But Osiris did what they came in for. They used no ultimates, and they got 2 out, basically. They build, and look at that, Suboptimal's going to be having another copy for this next fight. This is the exact scenario that they wanted.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, now you have already a better time bank if you're Osiris, so that's already great. And realistically, that's what they needed to do. You know, they don't necessarily need to stop the car until 3rd point because they did full cap with a decent amount of time, so they can just wear down the clock as much as possible. And then on this final push, you bring it down to overtime relatively quick, and you have 2 fights until that happens, and then you just win.
Yeah, now look at that. FaZe on the high ground just looking to poke in while Osiris just goes right into the... That manages to find out Snow. He doesn't even want to use the rally to attempt to save themselves. But look at this Primal going inside of the backline. The Nano now being used onto the monkey. They're just being able to poke people around. Loli's just doing their best, but Itachi still gets found out. There are 2 monkeys in Red Sky's backline, and they're both using Primal. Echo now just uncloaked, and he's gonna be shut down. No, it looks like Kronko's just being there, able to support Suboptimal, barely being able to escape. Nope, manages to die out. However, they still win that fight. That was a bit impressive coming out of the side from both the tanks. They were so coordinated that I don't know if they did it on purpose, but they used Primal one after the other and used their dives so coordinated with the bubbles that they just were able to get so much value.
Probably slightly coordinated. I feel like that would be one heck of a coincidence if they managed to just do that by accident. Now you have relatively even ult economies. However, Snowy crucially has the rallies. That's going to make Osiris a little bit chunkier than they otherwise would be.
Yeah, the Nano comes out. Kami is managing to pick onto the Zarya with the copy. They do find Skrill out, but the Graviton Surge now being used, looking to find out the target. The Pulse Bomb comes out, finds Itachi. Poor soul, not being able to live for long. Now Kami is just stuck inside the enemy lines. We're in overtime right now, so this is no time to be dying right for the side of Red Skies. The Brig going down dangerously low, and the poke is just unrelenting. The monkey now comes back. They do manage to trade out Brig, and Blinks is so low. The Pulse Bomb not being able to find out much, but it looks like Suboptimal will be able to come back and find some targets. Now look, they're onslaught at this point. Scroll doesn't have any supports in the Primals there to move them back. They can wait, but the Doomfist is here saying, I want to try to engage on people. Itachi's now getting pressured out from the back, so they're having to go into this fight without much healing when it comes to Scroll. Look at that, going to be picked up, but they don't press. They get for 2 seconds. You can't let that happen. No, you can't. It was getting good, but Osiris are going to Gibraltar because Red Sky gets off the point for a millisecond. You can't let that happen.
They had even took out Skrill right as he got Primal as well, so that was a really good offense right up until it wasn't for Red Sky. That's tragic, you know. They would have been at a disadvantage even if they managed to full capture there, because it would have been an overtime, but that's so painful. I think Osiris is starting to come back after having to forfeit King's Row from that one, because holy moly, that was brilliant play to just wear down the clock as much as possible on 1st and 2nd points. And by the time they even captured 2nd point, they had 3 seconds extra on top of Osiris coming into 3rd point, so Red Sky was already at a disadvantage. And then you just need to wear down the clock till overtime, take it easy, and then win one fight, or just wait for Red Sky to walk off the point in that case.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate, but this is where Red Skies need to start bringing it back. Stay in tune. We're going to be going to a quick break. Red Skies versus Osiris. Osiris at match point right now, so I do hope to see how things turn out. Make sure to tune back into GGEU. Welcome back, everyone, as we are continuing the Red Sky versus Osiris game. Had a bit of pause, but we are now discussing the next map, which is 2CP, Assault, and whatever you want to call it. We're going straight to Hanamura. Mr. Acronator, how do you feel about this draw central of a map?
Dronamora, as it's infamously known. Yeah, this is honestly one of the more difficult 2CP maps in general, in my opinion. Specifically, second point, I think is probably one of the hardest points in the game to capture. Just it's so hard with the respawn advantage from the defenders. It's very often that you'll see first holds or second holds entirely, just because of how unforgiving the choke points are on this map in particular. You can see a lot of aerial play like Echo or Pharah if the teams are feeling it. We could also just see stereotypical brawl like we saw briefly on King's Row, but we could also see double bubble. We could see some symmetric compositions, maybe even some double shield, much to the chagrin of probably everyone involved on the defense. So it really depends on what these teams want to run, but it's a map that plays very heavily into like a slow poke oriented playstyle.
I do agree to that, but I feel the most important part is about consistency and ult management. Because when it comes to first point, I feel like it's very easy to kind of have a nice fair fight. But once you get to second point, the attackers are just not favored anymore. If you're not killing your targets in the second that they spawn, you're not really doing well. And this is where an issue can happen where drawn out fights are put in for so long that the attacking side will use so many ultimates, they have nothing when it comes to defending. Or, I mean, well, returning back into the fight.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's not even necessarily ultimates for the offense on second point. It's really just like target focus in general. They need to be finding kills and they can't really lose anyone outside of like, I don't know, if they have a Mei, then maybe they can get away with losing that, but they need so much damage. They need a good amount of target focus so that the defenders are dying very quickly. Otherwise, the defense is just going to come back and ruin everything about their plans. Of course, Osiris winning that last map are going to be going over to the defense. They want to end this as quickly as possible. I'm sure they would love to get a first hold and just quickly take the series 3-1, but they're going to have to work for it.
Yep, just like in the ancient myth, Osiris has to go back onto the bed to reset the sun cycle, and most likely, if Red Skies are sticking onto this composition, they're planning out on the Sim TP strat. We've seen this strategy being run for a good, I feel like a good season or two now. It's been very popular, especially with the new strategy going on top of the HUD. What do you feel it might happen?
Assuming these teams both run out with what they're currently showing, granted Osiris is definitely sticking on to this, probably just Osiris playing the choke point, and if they see a Symmetra getting ready to rotate back to point. Really depend. It looks like Fade is swapping over to the McCree, so probably not going to be seeing any funny business with the teleporter. Probably just stereotypical stuff. Teams will poke out at each other until one of them builds up an ultimate, like a Amp Matrix or a Blizzard, and then go in from there. So we'll see a little bit of a stalemate in the choke, probably.
Yeah, look, it's already the incoming poke as they meet up. That beautiful wall blocking them down. Looks like the immortality's not going to come out in time to save up Lonely, so the rest, the Red Sky just has to back up, but they managed to get a beautiful DMAC onto what looks to be Happy Feet.
Yeah, Happy Feet getting a little bit staggered there, but crucially, Krunko did fall, so they will have a little bit of time before they get back to the point. That is a good amount of burst heals now gone for the defense, and if Red Sky had any opportunity for this upcoming fight, it's gonna be that, because obviously you don't have very much in the way of ultimates.
Oh, I do agree. Look at that. The wall being used, it gets broken, so they're not going to have it for a good bit. Whiskey's mech is also dangerously low. The sun comes out, not being able to find much. They do bait out the immortality, and the Maywall stops them from touching onto the point. Whiskey's mech going dangerously low, still somehow managing to survive out of it. Now the brawl continues to go in. Whiskey now team mech, but they've lost her burner. They were too focused onto the Diva. The immortality perfectly placed to kind of protect Skrill for a little bit, having to rotate the around the Maywall. Look at that window now going out as the May is just stuck behind them, looking to do anything, but they both get frozen. They still get pocketed, and the shatter comes out. It gets blocked. Unfortunate. Now that Blizzard being built so fast by communism that he's just able to just start melting people down. And there is nothing on the side of Osiris they can do. They even committed to Blizzard themselves, but by then they were all already dead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they really needed that Blizzard or the Shatter, in all honesty. Krunko's Ant Matrix was really the only thing I felt like was getting any value for a brief period, but Skrill basically solo shattered Happy Feet when he was just about demeched anyways. So it begs the question as to whether it was really worth it. Suboptimal's Blizzard, I think that was just a response to Communist Maxwell's Blizzard, and realistically, they're already losing the fight on the defense side of things, so they probably could have saved that for this upcoming fight.
Yeah, but now Fade and Lynx have the high noon, so it's a matter of who gets more value out of it. Look at this poke. The Maywall managing to block out the line of sight. The Immortality helping to save. Now the charge coming out onto the Reinhardt. Manages to miss, but does get jams out in the open. The Shatter comes out and gets them! They weren't ready for it! And now that look at that, the Diva Bomb being used just to hopefully remake Funko. Managing to find this out. The Diva Bomb being placed onto point.
Oh no.
Could just kind of stands there giving up, didn't try to run away from it, and it looks like this is still somewhat of an even fight. Communism going down. I don't think Red Skies are going to have the ability to kind of win any type of fight, because Osiris just comes back and they have faster spawns. It just didn't matter in the end.
Honestly, from a few seconds after they lost Jams, she got pinned by Skrill. They needed to equalize almost immediately. Otherwise, they weren't going to win that fight, and they had a really tough time finding any extra kills. So Red Sky was basically set in stone that they weren't going to win that fight. They just had to try and get ultimates out of Osiris in that case, which I think they got, like, what, the beat in the Matrix? Oh, dear.
Shielding! And Fade was using the high noon, so it gets canceled. The Blizzard is just there as a way to make sure that they win. But, I mean, come on, guys. You've already ruined their day. Don't ruin their life.
Well, that's pretty much all you need if you're Osiris. Just keep cycling 2 ultimates at a time. They will have the bomb and the high noon probably midway into this next fight, whereas Jams is really going to be the only person on Red Sky that has anything coming into this next fight. Maybe Communist Max if it draws out for a long time and it's not decisive either way. Might get the Blizzard. Granted, they have to worry about it getting eaten by Whiskey, but that's neither here nor there quite yet. So they have to get in first.
Look at this incoming poke. They're just wanting to wait. Red Skies does have the sound barrier if they choose to want to engage. They managed to get the mid wall out. However, the blue wall is managing to stop them from being able to fully commit. Now look at that immortality on both sides. Kind of a messy fight right now. The sound barrier being used while the Blizzard just there to kind of stun them out. Whiskey using the Diva Bomb, looking to find someone else. Only to find the Diva. And Fade and Itachi are just there to start picking people off. Scrub tries to charge out, but it's just so unfortunate. All that's left is Snowy, who's just on top. Aside from the mage, just on point, going to be going down. It's all up to Snowy to install this out. Using the sound barrier, manages to find out both the Tracer and Baptiste. Now the Shatter gets used, manages to find out the Diva. The charge coming in, Immortality saving them with the window. Just absolutely melts slowly. Now the counter charge coming in from Skrull. Finds out the May, they have no type of stall in this, and this is what I say when I mean you have to kill someone really fast, because they basically won that fight, but they didn't even get a tick because Snowy and Suboptimal just stalled it out.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the defender's advantage. It's so drastic on Hanamura second, where the fights have to be so incredibly decisive in favor of the offense, and in this case, they probably just need to save up more than 2 ultimates at a time and, you know, try and take a few dry fights. They have time, but they're going to be running out of time. If they keep trying to cycle these ultimates, you know, they're probably going to need to use, like, both the High Noon and the Blizzard and maybe a Shatter or a Bomb.
Yep, the stun gets eaten, and they still want to walk through this room looking for that Maywall. Interestingly enough, Fade just goes, walks around it, and just doesn't even care, uses the high noon, manages to get 2. That immortality is there, and Scroll is on the high ground, but it's immediately going to be melted. They're going to be going onto the point, manages to get the tick. There's only 2 people left on the side of Osiris right now, as they're starting to come back from spawn, but they managed to find out Snowy in the poke. Now Weezy's going to be touching the bomb now going on, and same with the window on top of the high ground, managing to find out Krunko. This is the opportunity they've been looking for. Look at this target focusing, no misses as Suboptimal goes onto the Genji, hoping to find a target. Doesn't even manage to find anyone from that Shatter, and it looks like they're going to be able to capture this point with 1 minute and 17 seconds, and they still had the Blizzard as insurance.
Despite not having a ton of utility going into that fight, Red Sky found a ton of value from the High Noon. It found 2 people, specifically Krunko and I believe Suboptimal were the ones to fall there. So it really allowed for Red Sky to just push in. Yeah, they had some people take the high ground, the rest drop down to point, get that tick as quickly as possible, at the very least getting some percentage on the board, avoid that tie as much as possible. And then from there, the target focus was good. You know, it's really all you need. It's not difficult on paper, but it's very difficult in practice.
I definitely see what you mean. Osiris's biggest issue right now is I feel like they weren't really adapting much to Red Skies, just kind of hoping the same plan would help out every time. We would see Red Skies win every fight, but because 2CP and they were just able to stall out for long enough, Osiris would come back with their ultimates and just be able to win out from it. But once they started to fix that issue, they immediately started to win, and that's kind of worrying coming out on the side of Osiris, because you need to be adaptable on, especially on Hanamura.
Yeah, especially on offense on Hanamura, if anything. So if they decide to stick with the Symmetra, that's going to be a good opportunity for them to showcase that adaptability, that flexibility in their playstyle. Of course, Alex could just TP them once, and then if it doesn't work, swap over to like a McCree or a Tracer. But otherwise, we're pretty much seeing the same thing outside of that one DPS swap on the offense this time around.
If they do want to run this Symmetra, this could either go terribly wrong or terribly great, but it looks like they predicted exactly where they were going, because the Maywa manages to split them up. That Immortality is being used, and they use the Maywa to hopefully find another target as they're starting to go in. The Immortality for the defense, just kind of sticking them. Krunko goes down, they've lost their Baptiste, but it seems that they're racking up the damage to Symmetra, just being able to start walking forward, especially with a trade onto the main tank. There's just not much that Red Skies can do, rather than looking to just shut down the Symmetra. The Mage is doing their best, and they're finally going to be able to find them a suboptimal. Also, even this stuff, they have to remember that TP is still alive. Even this window, which gives double the healing, they find out Jams in it. Snowy's going to be able to trade out with suboptimal still there. Coming up on the Blizzard, the Immortality saves their life. Going to be looking to use it, but that TP is gone, so there are no fast respawns now.
Oh,
as the charge comes out, looks like they just want to back out suboptimal. They were just waiting to die, but they were still AD strafing, so the enemy team was just missing.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what happens when you have a black game, but either way, Osiris still has the Blizzard, as well as the Symmetra Ball. That could help quite a bit with Fade's High Noon if they decide to use that. Osiris has a slight ult advantage, but nothing super crazy to the point where the offense is going to have a distinct advantage. They are keeping up to the high ground, expect a drop once they assess the situation, figure out what's happening.
Yeah, they're going to use that Sim Wall to split them up. However, it doesn't block the incoming damage. Look at that, the Symmetra already starting to walk in and is being pressured out. Has to use the Immortality, and the Blizzard manages to find them out. Snowy dies to the remake, but it doesn't matter when Fade has the High Noon, looking to just scroll back in, and the counter Blizzard just being invested to help make sure that they win out this fight. Fade almost manages to find out the Diva Bomb being used, looking to find people, and it looks like this combination is just ending people's lives. Fade unable to really hit somebody with a shot, so has to try to melee to death, but Itachi says, I got you.
It's honestly starting to look like a lack of target focus and lack of planning from Osiris. They know what they're doing in terms of the ultimates, but after they toss out the ultimates, there's not really any target focus. There's no focus onto this person, that person, use these cooldowns to do this. It's just kind of like press Q and hope something happens. And Red Sky has a pretty good idea of how they want to defend this. Thus far, they're doing really good. Hanamura seems to be, there you go.
Well, Hanamura seems to be what? With the fact that Snowy just dies from that incoming poke.
Yeah, I feel like Red Skies probably practiced Hanamura quite a bit more than Osiris. They seem to have a better idea of what they want to do here. And now they're just kind of awkwardly waiting for their Lucio, who has to rotate really close. Really close.
I guess that's why Lucio has speed boost, just to stop that stagger. But now they're coming in with only a Shatter and Diva Bomb. Osiris has to make a miracle happen, especially with Red Skies having the defensive ult of the sound barrier that may allow them to sustain. Look at that Maywell managing to block out the Diva Bomb, but it finds out Fade! Interestingly enough, the Shatter manages to find the Diva in May, but the sound barrier gets used just to even it up. They manage to find out Communism. I think it was a poop off the map. I'm gonna need a replay for that one. And they're just able to start mowing down. It just seems that with Fade down first, they just kind of gave up a point, but the ultimates still were committed. However, on the other hand, Oasis still managed to bring up 3 ultimates on the sideline.
Yeah, but if you're Osiris, you're gonna have like what, 3.5 minutes to push into second point, so you have time to take a dry fight, maybe build up 6 ultimates or at least close to it, and then all press Q at once. That seems to be working for them going into this first point. Honestly, Fade falling first there in that final push for first point was crucial for Red Sky losing that, because Fade's like 90-85% of the damage coming in for this Brawl comp, so there's just not much they can do in terms of securing final blows.
Yeah, And look at that, Zenlinx manages to find the 2K, and that's basically your opportunity to start moving. And look at that, they use the Blizzard, find Jams out, and Fate, and now they're running on, they're running on point now, but the Baptiste is still alive. They managed to find him out. They basically got a team kill there, but it's all about what they do now. They might be able to capture all of it. They have 2 ticks, that Reinhardt just not being able to touch. Finally does, but if they get off for a second, it's over. They managed to get the first 2 picks, especially that Doom, because that's major. That window is doing so much on the high ground, and that Diva Bomb just being thrown out, the immortality managing to save them. It was so clutch, but Scroll dies, and it looks like they're gonna be losing the ball. No, they get on the point! Red Skies, what did you not learn?
No way!
They
won!
They just let them get off. They just let them get off. Oh wait, Osiris just end up moving around. They don't even care. They were going to lose that fight, but then Red Sky said, we'll get off the point for a second. You know, we'll give it to you guys. We can hold for about 2 minutes or so.
Oh my word. That's tragic. I don't understand how that happens twice in a row, too. That happened in Jib, now it happened here. At least it didn't cost them the win. But the time bank difference is about double for Osiris. Yeah, just slightly under double. That's gotta sting. Happening again, there's gotta be some kind of coordination, communication issue with Red Sky that keeps happening. Normally you have someone like Happy Feet or Lolly on the point just to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, you just don't step off. That's your one job, and they did. So I don't know. They had that in the bag. They could have taken at least a couple more fights. That was a really good hold, and then they just do the worst thing possible.
Yeah. What it looked like from me was like, I think it was Happy Feet and Communist Max. They were both targeting 2 different people in 2 different angles, and they were so tunneled in because they wanted to win that they just got off. And unfortunately, I think it was Snowy or someone was just sitting there. Now we're seeing them come back onto the TP. They just want to mirror and just do what the enemy team did, already placing it down, but that Maywell's going to be able to split them up a tiny bit. That immortality, they managed to find out Zinx, however. That's going to be amazing when it comes to this push. Without that Creed, they have nothing to stop them from being stunned. And look at that Scroll goes down and managing to even it up. But Fate has so much charge and it's just melting down that Diva. It looks like that they just, Osiris just wasn't prepared for the Sim TP. Most of them are down now, and Fate is just continuing to just melt them while using the Sim turrets. Look at that, everyone else just there on the porch, and they're just being melted like a cream cheese in the summer sun.
Pretty much, yeah. Again, you had the McCree Falls Ilex first. And that's such a huge portion of Osiris's damage on the defense, and unlike second point, a staggered fight back and forth, which that was, favors the offense because they have a slightly better respawn advantage. Now coming into the second point.
They're taking the top left high ground. They're top on Shrine. That's really good if I do say so myself. Forces the enemy team to play uncomfortable. That symbol used in a questionable position does not manage to save a low.
Remake kill.
He gets the remake kill. Haha, funny. And Scroll just looks like to be walking inside of the enemy team. The window gets used, hoping to just heal up the targets and help sustain them throughout this. But Kuna managed to get poked out during it. The counter wall is there while Zinx manages to find it out. There's only a Mei really on the point. Same with the Symmetra, but it looks like Suboptimal's back. Then they use the wall, just looking to stall this out. Snowy helping to even it up. The Symmetra at very, very high charge, and the Reinhardt's returns back in. They need to shut this down as fast as possible. The TP being used just to help them get back faster. Same with Blizzard. This is absolutely insane. Scroll goes down, Kuna goes down. They're not being able to have anyone starting to recontest. Look at this melt. As his Fate is just perfectly tracking the targets with the mouse and keyboard. Now the counter is being used. Same with the high Red Sky still have a tick, so they have a good opportunity to win this. Now Scroll goes back onto the ball, and unfortunately, it looks like they just outwaited their time, weren't able to finish people off because they are just unable to start having people come back to the point, especially with the TP. The Sound Barrier gets used as just for closure because they're not going to be able to pay bills, and Red Sky is only able to get a tick on second point of Hanamura.
That's still pretty good, though, if you're Red Sky. You had, like, what, a minute and 17-ish seconds going into that round. Even taking first point at all, regardless of getting any progress on second point, is pretty darn big, if you ask me. So Osiris is going to have a significantly cleaner offense for first point than they did on their first round, because they took it, like, what, to 30 seconds? That's like 3.5 minutes to actually get a successful fight. Whereas now they only have like 2 minutes 24 seconds, give or take. So it's gonna be a little bit down to the wire if they can't figure out how to attack first a little bit more cleanly.
Yeah, I would really have to agree. 2 minutes and 24 seconds on Oasis pretty much translates to 30 seconds on King's Row or any other map, because that time means so much, especially on a map that just stalls you out for the longest time. See, Osiris are learning from their mistakes, not even running to run the symmetric strategy, because everybody does it, so everyone knows where they're gonna go.
You say that, but then Red Sky bulldozes their way through first point with a sim TP strategy after not doing it on the first round. So.
You can't expect the expected, the unexpected to be expected.
Either way, Osiris, this is their chance to take the series. Otherwise this is going to a map 5. Of course, the one win that Red Sky has on the board thus far was by forfeit. So Osiris really wants to end this out before it gets the potential of losing the series.
Already speaking out, they want to take the right side. Beautiful rotation, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, they're taking really quick rotations. That's what they need to do. They don't even have to worry about this Mei wall, just because there's no real damage that can get through their Rhyme Shield. It's just Fade that can do anything, really. So they have the position that they need, but now they need to actually engage on this. They're waiting for cooldowns, probably, to make sure they can drop in.
Beautiful! Everyone manages to find them out, and the counter charge manages to force them to back up a bit. The immortality saves them. However, Snow gets picked off, being a bit too aggressive, going in for some picks. Now the Brawl Slow goes in. Fade being able to find out the tree, and they're just getting so much poke. Look at Fade already has the high noon in 30 seconds, and it's just cleaning into the rest of Osiris.
Yeah, Whiskey's probably gonna get staggered a little bit. Nope, they're not even risking that one. That would be funny and tragic at the same time. So the two main ultimates I'm looking at here are gonna be Fade's High Noon and Skrill's Shatter. Krunko does also have their Amplification Matrix, as well as Itachi, but those are almost disposable ultimates in a way. They could have a lot of potential, but it's going to be dependent on how the teams utilize those.
Yeah, look, they use that window really far up. Fade's going to slowly do a rotation with the High Noon, looking to find someone, but Whiskey just goes a bit too far. Find out Z-Links just didn't respect it enough, and Fade's... No, it looks like Heavy Feed's going to be able to find some optimal with the remake, and now they're just looking to melt everyone else. Now Whiskey does manage to find out Fade and use this demon bomb to hopefully have another recontest, but I think you kind of want to save that for the next fight. You don't have anyone else to help you besides from Snow, and if I do say so myself, this Lucio's just looking like they're very high on Adderall right now, just going around.
They're a frog out of water, so to speak. Now, crucially, the DPS on Osiris are going to have their ultimates, but Jams has her beat. That could end everything right now, as well as Communist Max having their Blizzard as well. So the Beat Blizzard combination for the defense here could end it before it ever begins. They have 5 seconds to get onto point, and they might not have the opportunity.
That the Blizzard gets used, both Blizzards, but Heavy Feed keeps optimal Blizzard. The Shatter hits the Maywall, the High Noon gets no value, and it 2K finishes them off. It looks like Red Sky really wants to win this and bring this to any form of map 5, because they stop Osiris from catching the point, and it looks like they're just going to be winning. Red Sky is bringing this into map 5. I am so excited as we go back to control.
Okay, so Red Sky at the very least didn't allow that terrible C9 to define this map for them. Looks like we're going to have a comparison of the McCree play. Fitting, considering the play of the game was Fade just completely popping off with the help of the Blizzard from Communist Max, very nearly dying there.
That could have saved their fight, but unfortunately, Fade just has so much ability, doing so much damage. Like, compared to Xilinx on Osiris, he has just been dominating. Look at that, 25 final blows to 11. Does a bit more damage, but the weapon accuracy says a lot.
Yeah, realistically, looking at everything besides the eliminations and the final blows, the damage, the weapon accuracy, the crit accuracy, they're very close. So to me, that tells a very interesting story for Fade, finding a lot of the final blows, finishing off a lot of the kills, but also speaking a lot to the supports on Red Sky, because they're keeping everyone alive, whereas Xilinx was getting similar damage numbers realistically, but so many more people were dying on the side of Osiris, so that tells me that Red Sky's supports in particular were also doing a lot of work on Hanamura.
They were working overtime. They said, you know what, that C9, just forget it. We're gonna win, even with Osiris forfeiting a map, and we're just gonna forget about it. So we're going back to control. That brings we used Busan, so this brings in Ilios, or it brings in Lijiang Tower. I'm definitely seeing Osiris running in that Lijiang Tower. That seems to be their favorite map. But I'm more worried because Red Skies looked a lot better on the Symmetra strategies.
Yeah, they seemed to know what they wanted to do. They were a lot quicker with the teleports, whereas Osiris kind of lags behind, and that allowed them to get cut off. Looks like the next map will be Lijiang, so if we're talking Symmetra, she could be played on all 3 points. A little bit less common in Gardens, but we've seen it. You know, it does work if they want to run that brawl on Gardens. Otherwise, the other two, Control Center and Night Market, extremely common to see the Symmetra, so I would fully expect to see that. At the very least, a Control Center. That's just a standard thing, and actually, yeah, Night Market's pretty standard too, now that I think about it. So, realistically, I don't know who could be in favor here, because Lijiang is such a weird map in the fact that all 3 points have different play styles that are attributed to them. You know, Control Center has that brawl. Night Market is a little bit more like bunker-y with the Symmetra, and then Gardens is more like dive poke oriented. So it's hard to say who's necessarily going to be in favor, as opposed to something like Busan, where there's more cohesion between the various rounds.
Yeah, I think the point that we kind of want to focus on is more of the combination play. I think that's what's really been defining everyone when it comes to these. Osiris has spent a lot of time moving in forward. They looked a lot disconnected when it came to Hanamura, and I think that's really what defined them in the end. While Red Skies, they're making so much space for Fade to be able to shoot people. Their divas making sure they stay with the Reinhardt. I mean, sure, we're seeing their main tank die a lot, but they're still getting a lot of peel and bringing up these fights when they're starting to focus. And I think, especially when it comes to the Symmetra strategy, Fade was always targeting a person, and everyone was making sure that Fade was being body blocked, was being protected, and I think that will end up making a very big difference.
Yeah, especially if they keep that kind of pocketing up, especially when you're playing that sort of brawl composition. One of the big win conditions is just giving your McCree space, right? He is like 85% of the damage, roughly, on the team. You know, they do so much damage as opposed to really anyone else, unless you're running like a McCree Tracer, then the Tracer might be able to put in some extra. But otherwise, they really just need to give their McCrees space and they allow them to breathe, and they can probably get kills. You know, they just need to be able to hit their shots. You need to allow them to get into a position where they can just do their job, and it'll be fine.
I can definitely see, but I feel like the more I'm thinking about it, I feel like Osiris. I wonder if they might be kind of draining down. They looked very great when it came onto Gibraltar, but after that, they're starting to slow down. We've seen them kind of go up and then down, up and then down, and I'm more worried because Red Sky have at least looked a bit more straight.
Yeah, they've looked a bit more consistent thus far. However, it is worth noting that I think Osiris's skill peak thus far has definitely been a lot higher. I think Gibraltar showed that quite a bit. So it really depends on how boomed they are. You know, you would hope that teams don't get boomed. That doesn't affect their play, but we're all human. It's gonna happen at certain points. So coming into this, we're playing Gardens first. So I wouldn't be shocked to see something like Double Bubble, but I could also just see the stereotypical brawl. Actually,
wow,
a
Mr.
little bit of both.
Mr. Grenadier, you perfectly predicted the kind of what they're going. If I know what to say, I think Double Bubble is kind of the rock paper scissors of against Red Skies. I think they have the pure advantage, especially if they play aggressive. But this is pretty even. It just matters in how they use it.
Yeah, realistically, both of these compositions can be very good. It's going to be difficult for Fade to deal with suboptimal, especially with Xylix also being in the mess, because when you look at it, Communist Max isn't really going to have an easy time, aside from like a Lucky Icicle, to deal with either of the DPS on Osiris. So both Xylix and suboptimal, in theory, should have free reign as long as they take care of Fade first, right? As long as they make sure he doesn't have enough room to breathe.
Oh, I definitely agree. Now we see a big anti-grenade hitting up slowly. They're trying to melt him down, but the immortalities there, suboptimal, managing to go down during this fight. Zealand now being able to go inside the backline and look for a target, trying to make up for what suboptimal lacks. But it looks like they just want to back up. They don't have their echo, and they seem pretty unconfident just to move in. They use the bubble just to try to make space, but that Zarya takes in so much poke that even now with suboptimal back, they need to wait.
Yeah, Suboptimal just didn't respect the McCree, and that's what you have to do. You have to be wary of that. As long as Fade is still in this fight, Suboptimal and Xylix can't just do whatever they want. You know, like I said, they have to make sure that the McCree is either out of the fight or can't breathe, and then they can push in. But they didn't do that. They were trying so hard to kill Olympus that it backfired on them, and you lost the Echo.
I definitely see what you mean. Grunko does have the nano boost because of how much damage they took. The Z-Links is going down so low, and they're just waiting. Look at Fade, built the high noon just by poking them. Now we see the nano dive come back in. They're looking to just take out Fade. The coordination is there, and they shut it down, so there's going to be no high noon, but now they have to back into the fight. The immortality being used, mass phasing, hitting out Itachi. He's not going to be able to survive 200 damage. Shatter managing to find out both Zarya and Diana, but still, there's so much field. They basically have killed everyone, and now everyone from Red Sky, sure, they get this up to about 40-something%, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the bigger challenges for Red Sky, is Happy Feet has to eat those anti-nades from Grunko. Otherwise, they're just going to open up the entire fight and allow Skrill to just do their thing. It doesn't matter if the monkey doesn't do a ton of damage if everyone's anti. They're not going to get healed anyways. Now you just have Xylix looking for a pulse bomb, a little bit cheeky, Whiskey probably looking for a grab combo there, but this Max has Blizzard. Oh dear.
Oh, look at that. So unfortunate. The Graviton Surge gets eaten by Happy Feet, and now the Primal's just trying to shut down Fade, but Fade is just there. So clean, so pretty, and they're going to be able to win that point back in one fight. My goodness.
Yeah, a little bit costly on the side of Red Sky because they had to use the Blizzard and the High Noon and the Amp Matrix. I think they might have tried to use the Shatter, or maybe that was the previous fight. No, actually, that was the previous fight. So again, they're a little bit over-investing in the ultimates, but at the very least, Osiris also invested quite a bit. They used 3 ults of their own? Oh dear. Duplicate.
The sound barrier going out to sustain, the duplicate not being able to sustain itself throughout anything. You see Z-Links in the back line just trying to do anything. Suboptimal goes down. How unfortunate. Now they're moving out. The monkey gets frozen. Looks like Red Sky's have the advantage when it comes to they're so coordinated and so upbeat right now that their target focus is absolutely peaked. Grunko does go down with the Nanobus, so when it comes to this last fight territory, they're going to need to do something big.
Yeah. Looking at the ultimates that Osiris has, actually they need to touch. Xylix, maybe not. Nope.
It's going to be so unfortunate as Red Sky is bringing it to match point. This is going to be a little scary, especially depending on what type of matchup we go to.
Yeah, if we're seeing Control Center, Red Sky's already feeling it on the Brawl. Okay, so we're going to Night Market. Expect a lot of Symmetra. A little bit of flexibility in terms of what they can run. Yeah, Xylix over to the Symmetra, nothing crazy there. And actually the Rhyme Orisa from Osiris with Suboptimal on the Doomfist. I've seen this a little bit. It's kind of high risk, high reward, but the Orisa makes it a little bit less risky just because you have a bit more tankiness in your health bars. The Doomfist can look for picks and then rotate around behind either one of the shields. It's gonna be rather difficult, but it's gonna be mostly on Communist Max to shut down the Doomfist, make sure they can't really move as freely as they would otherwise.
Yeah, look at them already going in. The charge comes out, not being really open on much. Both sim turrets are out looking to just melt them down. Immortality's being invested, but I'm guessing the shields have a bit more of an advantage as that Doomfish just looking to melt. So when Suboptimal goes down, Symmetra just not being able to do much. Those shields, as much as you think they're useful, they give ammo to Fade, and Fade is doing so much with it.
Yeah, that's the one problem with the double shield is you kind of have to get your Symmetra charged up faster. I would have expected them to focus down Happy Feet first just because it's free low. You know, if La Olympus focuses down with their shield, then just get free ammo off of that. Suboptimal swapping over to the Pharah. They don't really have anything to deal with it on the side of Red Sky, so as long as Suboptimal can stay out of range of the turrets, they should be okay.
And now look, now they're using the Symbol to block. They can't push in because both sides are basically blocked off, but they want to still try to continue going in. That window gets used. The Shatter, weirdly coordinated, but it just doesn't get much value. And now the opposite Symbol being used, Suboptimal managed to find out that Lucio inside the backline, and the poke is just absolutely amazing. Look at him just slowly going in, but now the turrets are being so annoying. It boops off the Maya. No, doesn't manage to find it. Almost does. Suboptimal still alive. The Shatter managing to find some targets, and this may be the opening that they've been waiting for as we see Fade try to do anything, but Suboptimal still alive and still just clicking heads or really directing heads.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you need to do with Osiris is put suboptimal on an awkward off angle. Maybe a little bit less so now because Fade is onto the McCree, so they need to be a little bit more careful about their sightlines, but you can still find a decent amount of value. They're gonna need to be careful, but otherwise I'd expect to see like the Blizzard come out from Communist Max, and Osiris doesn't really have anything to deal with it because they're not running the Lucio.
And they already use it. They're getting a lot of value.
No.
Optimal's using that barrage. He gets stunned down by the Creed. Just was a bit too far. Wasn't able to get much value from it. That's just a bit unfortunate. And it looks like Osiris has to give up this point.
I wouldn't be shocked to see Suboptimal swap over to something like an Echo, or... No, it looks like they're sticking on to the Far. They do need to be a lot more careful now with their sightlines, just because Fade's sightlines are going to be that much more deadly. Otherwise, they don't have too much to push in here, whereas Red Sky has a little bit to work with. They're going to have Itachi's Ant Matrix, Krunko's also going to have theirs, Snowy's going to have the Valk. So I'd probably expect to see the Valk in the Ant Matrixes. Jam's probably going to hold on to her beat until something happens that she needs it. Oh, okay, well, maybe they don't need it.
Don't need it that much. And the shot comes up, jumps, manages to delay it by a second, and they're going to be ending this fight so quick before it really truly even started. I don't think there's going to be anyone who can touch this point. We're at around 93%. They still have the Demon Bomb, Sound Barrier, and Field. If the Baptista's trying to do anything, is going to activate the overtime. The Mercy managing to bring out the res, and it's just going to barely be able to survive with the high noons there, looking for the target, manages to find one out. Now the Demon Bomb being split up into the air, and they may be gods, but I guess even they could topple because the Kree isn't going to be able to do anything, and Red Sky's bringing it back, managing to win Lijiang Tower 3-2. What an amazing game.
Yeah, Red Skies came into this to make a statement, you know, even though that they won one of the maps, King's Row, off of a forfeit from Osiris. They played really clean, you know, they did really well, and won the other two maps fair and square.
I would have to say, yeah, even if, I feel if we take the technical map out of it, you know, King's Row, I still think Red Skies did amazing, and they totally deserve this. When it comes to Osiris, I don't think there's much to be disappointed about, besides from the momentum that you had. You went up, you did great, but then you went slower, and you went down, and that's the part you need to work on in the future, especially if you want to do better.
Yeah, definitely some problems with like Hanamura, for example. The tempo was just completely off. The target focus was lacking, especially on that final push that they couldn't capture first point. But otherwise, yeah, not terrible play from them. They could just keep the energy up. You know, of course they lost their starting off tank after King's Row, so that probably hurt them a little bit. But that's just the kind of thing that you have to prepare for, and make sure that you're not beholden to just one player to win everything. You know, you need to be capable of subbing people in here and there, and still perform up to the level that you expect.
I can definitely agree. So I still was very entertained from what I saw. I think Fade definitely has a bright future when it comes to this team. I think was doing like 95% of everything when it came to these fights, but I don't really have much to say, Acronator, do you?
I think Red Sky definitely looks comfortable on their brawl composition, especially when Fade can play that McCree. Played it for like what 99% of the series, only swapping off very briefly to play something like a Symmetra or maybe a Tracer here and there. But otherwise, I think if they could keep Fade on that Cree, he seems very comfortable on it. I've been seeing Twitch chat meme that he's a little bit of a McCree one trick. I don't know how true that is because he did pretty well on the Symmetra, in all fairness, as well. But otherwise, yeah, looking really good from both of these teams. They're both 3-1 in the standings, but that's about all I've got.
Yeah, get some love on their names, and stay tuned as we take a break to get ready for the next game here at GG